Welcome to Strip Coverlet, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will appear in two separate playlists here on the channel. It's like an animal channel, a channel. The playlists that we will be playing in today are, of course, the poetry discussion playlist, but also the Sylvia Plath playlist. And today's journey is going to be a bit of a meta analysis. I don't know. Okay. So every once in a while, if I have troubles getting the juices flowing for a discussion or a review, I'll just sort of go out there and see what opinions there are on a piece. I'm not the other people's opinions guy. I try to bring you something that is from the me. That's why you're here, I think. Otherwise, you could find Cliff's Notes somewhere on the internet. And that was the case with Departure by Sylvia Plath. And normally, what happens is simply by reading someone else's interpretation, either I will say, hey, this is what's sort of generally out there, I will sort of relay the message, or reading it will allow me to. So I will read a poem, have my thoughts on it, not understand maybe what would be worth discussing, and by reading someone else's interpretation of the piece, then it clicks, oh, okay, the thing that I had thought about verse 3 is completely contradictory to sort of what's out there. That might be a talking point. I went to the internet for this poem and just typed it in, departure, and up popped a an analysis from something called Prezi, with which I was not familiar, from an individual with whom I was not familiar, whose very big selling point was being from a college with which I was not familiar. As I looked into what Prezi was, as I read this interpretation, I became disappointed. As I looked into what Prezi is, I became more disappointed. As I looked into where this individual went to college, I became even more disappointed. I'm not going to bring up the individual because I'm not trying to smear anyone. But I looked at several other interpretations and they weren't very far off. I asked ChatGPT what ChatGPT thinks of this poem. It wasn't very far off. So let's go ahead and get into the poem. Departure. Figs on the fig tree in the yard are green. Green also the grapes on the green vine, shading the brick red porch tiles. The money's run out. How nature, sensing this, compounds her bitters. Ungifted, ungrieved, our leave taking. The sun shines on unripe corn. Cats play in the stalks. Retrospect shall not offer such penury. Sun's brass, the moon's steely patinas, the leaden slag of the world, but always expose the scraggy rock spit, shielding the town's blue bay, against which the brunt of outer sea beats its brutal endlessly. Gull, fouled, a stone hut, bears its low lintel to corroding weathers across the jut of ochreous rock. Goats shamble, morose, rank-haired, to lick the sea salt. Okay, so let's go back to the first. Back up to the beginning. So Departure is a title that has sort of an ominous feel to it here. Departure. Departure from what? Well, here. The figs on the fig tree in the yard are green. Okay, green. Green also The grapes on the green vine, shading the brick red porch tiles. The money's run out. How nature, sensing this, compounds her bitters. The money running out is bitter. That's no good. The money runs out, you can't pay rent. You can't pay rent. What happens? You get out. So the figs are green. The grapes are green. Neither of these are ripe. Not being ripe, they are bitter. Now, Plath picked both figs and grapes, which are not notorious for bitterness in their unripened state. From what I understand, figs, which are not ripe, it's not the taste so much as the texture that you don't want to be eating. Grapes that are not quite ripe normally are not particularly described as bitter, but sour. Still, what we're doing, we're opening this poem with observations of being welcomed by fruit that is not ready. You can't have this fruit. How nature, sensing this, compounds her bitters. This is described in the very next line by our speaker. Ungifted. Well, there's no gift there. Ungrieved. Our leave taking, meaning we gotta go, and no one is sorry to see us go. The sun shines on unripe corn. You're not eating unripe corn. It's not good for you yet. Cats play in the stalks. Now, I understand that play here is kind of a positive word, right? They're playing, they're frolicking. Cats are predators. When a cat is playing, it is imagining predation. It is mocking murder. Retrospect shall not often such penury. Yeah, that is a typo there from the website I allegedly copied and pasted this from. Retrospect shall not soften such perjury. Sun's brass. Now, brass, the sun is always called golden, not brass. Brass is, what is brass? Copper plus tin, I believe, is brass. That is a much cheaper metal that is very dumbed down from gold. Moon's steely patinas. Steely patinas. Now, okay, I don't necessarily have to offer a negative interpretation of this, but you can, I think. The leaden slag of the world. But always expose the scraggy rock spit shielding the town's blue bay. Oh, okay, so the rock is protecting. I mean, okay, if you want to say it that way, if you want to imagine that the scraggy rock spit shielding the town's blue bay against the brunt of outer sea beats is a positive thing, it's still pretty negative for the rock. It's still a violent thing. The sea beats is brutal endlessly. Gull fouled. A stone hut bears its low lintel to corroding weathers. We are drawn back to the corroding weathers across the jut of ochreous rock. Ochre, if I'm not mistaken, has something to do with rust. The color has something to do with rust. Rust is the falling apart, right? Rust is the coagulation of finer elements with dirtier being. Goats Shamble. Ooh, shambles. Shambles are always bad. Morose. Rank haired. Now, the term rank haired is such a nasty sounding phrase, it might be original to Sylvia Plath's poetry. I don't think I've ever heard that phrase, but rank haired. Maybe it's common and I just don't know it, but goats shamble, morose, rank haired, to lick the sea salt. They're licking sea salt. So that you're not talking about something that's sweet there either. We started with bitter, we're ending with salty. There is no sweet. So all of this, right? Imagine my surprise when I go ahead and say, Google, tell me what Departure by Sylvia Plath is about. The poem also demonstrates that although the author is going through hard times, describing the outside world shows that life goes on and that there are other things happening in the world, more to life. With Sylvia speaking of the sun shining, this is a symbol of hope and that everything will be okay. Really? Really? That's what you take away from this poem? Everything's going to be all right? Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing ends brutally. Don't worry about a thing. The corrosive weather and ochreous rock. What? No. No. What this poem is about is that our speaker, the money has run out for our speaker. Everything is over. This is the end times. It's the apocalypse. Don't you know? Has your money ever run out? It feels like everything is wrong. In that moment, our speaker, not necessarily Sylvia Plath, by the way, and you'll understand in a moment why I'm so upset that this interpretation A is blatantly wild, is counterintuitive to the poem itself, but also that such a simple mistake, and I will make this mistake too, oftentimes, and you'll hopefully every time in these videos watch me correct it. This is not necessarily Sylvia Plath as the speaker, even if she is a confessionalist poet, but the money has run out, and everything else in the poem is confirmation bias. We're talking about the bitters of nature throughout this poem. With Sylvia speaking of the sun shining, this is a symbol of hope, and that everything will be okay. The sun is brass. The sun is brass. All right. But this individual, and I don't mean to pick on the individual, but this is part of the reason everything sucks in the world sometimes. Ironically, just as our poem is pointing out. I didn't know where this individual listed Smith College as the place where they went to college. Well, Smith College is about as generic. That's like college university, right? That sounds as generic as can be. It's like, well, what is this place? Smith College is a private liberal arts women's college in Northampton, Massachusetts. It was chartered in 1871 by Sophia Smith and opened in 1875. It is a member of the historic Seven Sisters Colleges, a group of women's colleges in northeastern United States. Smith is also a member of the Five College Consortium. It is in league also with Amherst, and if you don't know much about Amherst in general, sort of like Mecca, right? It's a sacred place. But personal feelings aside, and I'm not making a comment about women's colleges. I'm not making a comment about liberal arts colleges. I'm not making a comment about private colleges. Here is my beef here. Number one, this is going to sound like I'm immediately contradicting myself, but this is a women's college. I'm not making fun of this interpretation because it's from a women's college, from the graduate of a women's college. I'm making fun of it because Sylvia Plath is the. If you Google feminist poet, probably page one is a dedication to Sylvia Plath. It's a shrine to Sylvia Plath. Open up your dictionary under feminist poet. It will be a picture of Sylvia Plath and not one of the happy ones. Sylvia Plath is quintessentially feminist poet. Every feminist that I had to endure in college as a professor, and basically it was all of them, swore by Sylvia Plath. Sylvia Plath was like like their wine, right? Like every professor you had in college was a wino, all right? And there was one wine they drank socially, then one wine that they would drink bitter and alone in their house. I promise. Go back and ask them. Sylvia Plath was their bitter and alone wine. It wasn't the Moscato that they drink at poetry night. This was Pinot Noir, their nightly. Such. And look, maybe I'm wrong, okay? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this poem is actually about how good life is and about how everything will be okay. Every little thing will be okay. Maybe this poem is about how great it is to run out of money. Right in the opening stanza there. Maybe. I doubt it. So, women's college, feminist poet that is just blatantly misunderstood. Liberal arts college. Liberal arts college. So Prezi, from what I understand, is a website where, or perhaps it's a service. This was just a snippet. Like when I asked Google, "Hey, what's this about? What's this about? What's this about? What is this about?" Google gave me a little box saying, "Oh yeah, here. This one paragraph defines everything, and here's the link." From what I understand, Prezi is a service through which people make presentations on things. So this wasn't just someone was drunk and curious and decided to start reading Sylvia Plath and found one they liked. This individual who attended this college said, "Hey, I got something for you." And not only those things, this is an expensive university. Private college. Liberal arts colleges aren't cheap. And as someone who has 2 liberal arts degrees, I don't know why. But this is what's out there. These are the interpretations that are out there. Okay. The brunt of outer sea beats. It is brutal and endless. And every little thing is gonna be all right, all right. Don't worry about a thing. The money's run out. And it ran out, ran out. Be careful. Be careful if you are endeavoring literature. Be careful if you are embarking upon those things which are of the worldly ilk. Be careful. It may look. I have the humility to say maybe I'm wrong about all of this. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm the idiot here. But I didn't go to a very fancy college. I went to a university, I went to community college, and then I went to a university that grew out of a community college. And then I went to a private college that handed out for its master's programs basically blank letters, like letters of acceptance. I was in community, or I was in, I was community college basically. My master's program, creative writing, as a master's program with individuals, I kid you not, who could not write complete sentences. Now, you can't write complete sentences? I'm here for you. Absolutely, 100%. I hope this channel helps you. This channel is to perpetuate literature, and I hope that together we can grow you the ability to write a whole sentence. I mean that 100% from the bottom of my heart. However, if I am spending thousands of dollars to be in a classroom with you and thousands of dollars to get your thoughts on my writing, I wish there wasn't just open admissions. And for that, I will never forgive the university where I got my master's degree. Never will I forgive them. This interpretation, that departure by Sylvia Plath. What was the last happy poem you read by Sylvia Plath? I, to my experience, at this point probably have 60 to 80 Sylvia Plath poems under my belt. So no, I'm not the world expert. I don't know that I've read a happy one yet. So that's all I have for this one.